My boyfriend wants to be a SoundCloud rapper. I can't take it anymore. The other day my boyfriend invited me to tag along to his studio session. In his free time he makes music with his friend who's an audio engineer. I am not a fan. Don't get me wrong. I definitely pretend to be. I always repost the things he puts up on Instagram and Twitter, but I couldn't actually give a single line from any of his songs. His voice is terrible, his lines are ridiculous, and he just pirates his beats off of YouTube. I don't know who encouraged the first average Joe to put out a mixtape on SoundCloud, but whoever they are, they deserve prison time for their impact on society. We don't need more rappers. Even if we did, I can assure you, the world is not missing out on the talent of my boyfriend. He has none. At least not for this hip-hop thing. All of his friends hype him up, and his parents are in his ear telling him to follow his heart, but the cards are stacked against him. Then, he had the audacity to tell me that he was quitting his job to pursue his passion full-time. I thought it was an April Fool's prank. It was the middle of September. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't crush him by telling him that there was no way anyone was looking for what he was selling. He valued my opinion. I didn't want to lie to him, but I also didn't want to be the one to end his dreams. I half-heartedly told him that was great. I think he sensed my displeasure because he told me that I should come to a sesh with his boy next week to see for myself why he was destined for greatness. I really didn't want to, but I figured the worst that could happen was that I would be stuck listening to garbage for 2 hours. I couldn't have been more wrong. When we got to the studio I was immediately put on edge. The door was in the cut. It was blacked out and made of bulletproof glass. When we got to the front it buzzed and he pushed it open. I was hit with a wave of cold air and the pungent smell of creativity gas. His friend Squeegee was the engineer of the session. I had known Squeegee for a while and I could see that he was sorry for me. I could tell he was also a passive supporter of my boyfriend's delusions. However, all Squeegee cared about was paying rent, and I respected that. They sat me on a couch in the recording room and I watched the half-baked creative process that led to all the atrocities I heard on SoundCloud. It was truly criminal. I could see the pain on Squeegee's face as he nodded his head, pretending this was the best thing he had ever heard. I was trying to pay attention as much as I could. I was offering suggestions but they just kept shutting them down. Then my boyfriend uttered the worst bar I had ever heard in my life. I think it was something like, I told my friend to pass the gas but didn't want him to fart. At that point I was tapped out. I just sat on my phone and waited for the pain to end. I couldn't even pretend to justify this behavior any longer. I was in a doom scroll through my feed when the music suddenly stopped. I didn't notice for about 5 seconds. When I looked up to see what was going on, Dumb and Dumber were staring at me like they were expecting something. I just stared back. I figured they were upset because I was on my phone, but I had no plans of feeding the delusion any longer. Then, my boyfriend said, "So?" He was still inside the booth. Squeegee just turned on the intercom so that we could talk to each other. He pressed a button and prompted me to talk. I said, "So, what? What do you think?" "It's pretty bad, dude. I'm sorry." "What?" he replied. Squeegee had forgotten to hold the button. He prompted me to speak again. I cringed having to say it twice, but I had to double down. "I'm sorry, you're awful." Squeegee slapped his palm on his face and shook his head. My boyfriend took his headphones off and started tearing up. I had to listen to his sniffles on the studio monitors. He stormed out of the booth and walked right past me to leave the room. I couldn't believe that he was so heartbroken over this. This was my worst fear. I knew he was sensitive, but there had to be something else going on. I looked at Squeegee like, "What's happening?" And he said, "You didn't even hear it, did you?" He played the take back that my boyfriend had just laid down. It ended with, "I know it would be like donating to a charity, but baby I love you, so will you marry me?" I couldn't believe it. I was furious and flattered at the same time. I ran outside and found my dramatic boyfriend sitting on the curb pensively watching traffic like the lead in an R&B music video. I sat down next to him and told him that I hadn't heard the bar. I decided to lie to him one last time and said, "It was good." He said, "It came from the heart." I told him I loved him and he said, "But you don't love the grind." I was dumbfounded. I decided to suppress my urge to kill him. I really did love him. I told him that it didn't matter what he did or how we needed to make it work. I would support him regardless. We hugged each other. We got married a while later. I lost my boyfriend because he wanted to be a rapper. I gained a fiancé because he wanted to be my husband.